Thank you guys for coming back. I hope lunch was good. My name is Michaeli Hunt. I am the Senior Membership and Programs Associate at the Global Internet Forum to Counter Terrorism. My colleague already spoke this morning about how valuable GNET research is. It's something I am very familiar with. I work very closely with Julien and Belle in particular. We get on Zoom calls every couple of weeks, so it's great to see them in person today. As Noreen mentioned this morning, GNET Research supports tech companies with their trust and safety operations. It has been referenced in criminal trials and legal proceedings, and it informs our work at GIFCT. I do also want to take some time today, especially on this panel, to go over some of the tools and resources that can support the academic community and yourselves when you're carrying out research or undergoing our CVE operations. Yannick mentioned the need for more data in the panel just before lunch, and this is something that we do hear again and again from researchers. On that, I'll start with Catherine Grant. Catherine Grant is the research data lead for TikTok's Trust and Safety product team, where she focuses on enabling research about the platform through data sharing. She has been with TikTok since 2020. From 2018 to 2020, she led Facebook's content policy research initiative, and before joining the tech sector, Catherine held various policy and communications roles in the Obama administration, including at the White House, National Security Council, and the Department of Energy. Thanks, Catherine.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for having me. We're really, TikTok is really pleased to be part of this community and be able to engage in, events like this and learn from everybody in this room. So I'm happy to be here, and it's good to see some, familiar faces and meet some new friends. So happy to tell you a little bit today about our research tools and what we can offer to the research community right now and kind of where we're heading. I think, what I can do is quickly run through the available research tools and also share a little bit about how they might specifically be leveraged in the, extremism research community. Hopefully that will give you some ideas. I will also talk a little bit about just how you get access, what that process looks like. I think, hopefully it'll be a helpful thing if anyone's considering doing research on TikTok, to sort of set you up for success in that area. So let's see if I can get the clicker to work. Okay. Great. So what do we have? What can we offer you? So right now, we have two tools. We have a research API and we have what we call the virtual compute environment. The API is probably something that is pretty familiar to researchers who look at, social media data. It provides access to public data on TikTok content and accounts. This is like video engagement metrics, comment text, followers and following lists, and many other things. You can use the tools of your choosing to extract the data. It's downloadable at the individual level. It's kind of our more scaled approach to data sharing to date. And then, why did we build a second tool? What's the point of two? So let me tell you a little bit about the virtual compute environment because it's a bit more complicated. When we launched the research API, we made it available first to academic researchers in the US and then to academics in Europe as well. And an important piece of feedback we got was, there are researchers doing work outside of academia that is also really important to understanding the online environment. How can we support them? At the same time, the partners that we talked to were kind of showcased the range of institutional support that exists in the sort of nonprofit sector for researchers. What does your infrastructure look like? Do you have a data protection officer? What are the challenges that different kind of organizations face? And so that's why we started thinking about a way to share this data, but safeguard it and make it sort of a more privacy-first solution. And that's why we built the virtual compute environment, which I will call the VCE for, the world needs more acronyms. So in order to think about those different sorts of data storage and protection capabilities, we built the VCE, which is also a place where researchers can analyze public content, public TikTok data, but it allows for the download of aggregated results. And that just kind of helps us ensure that our users' privacy is better protected. This, has allowed us to open up at this point to EU-based not-for-profit researchers to enable like research to happen on TikTok across another sector. What the VCE looks like is 2 stages of work. A test stage where researchers can like set up their queries, make sure it's working appropriately, like is it pulling down what you expected? And in that test stage, you can see but not download the individual records so you can understand like how well is this working. And in that test stage, you can query against a sample of 5,000 records. And then when you're happy with that, you can move to the execution stage. And that is where you can run your queries against all available data in 100,000 record increments. So it is a way that you can do like really fast like metrics analysis. You can gather a great deal of insights quickly. And once that query runs in the execution stage, you'll get a notification that your aggregated outputs are ready for download, and you can take away those aggregated outputs, put together reports, do your best. So that's like, those are the 2 tools that we make available for slightly different use cases. And, we feel really, happy to be offering that to the research community, even though we also recognize that it's a jumping off point. So I'll talk quickly about how you actually get access to these tools. And I'll just be real quick here because I'm pretty sure all of you can figure out how to like submit an application form, but just in case there's any questions or any doubts. We have an application form on our TikTok for Developers website. If you're eligible, you create a TikTok for Developers account with your professional email address so we can tell you're affiliated where you say you are. You complete the application form. It asks for details about you, your organization, and your project. We do our best to process these applications within a month. And then once you're approved, we have some materials, which I'll talk about in a little bit, that tells you how to get started and, like how to, like where you go from here. Lastly, another piece of feedback that we heard from researchers is that many researchers work in a team, they work in a lab. So if you have API access, you can add collaborators to your project and be able to sort of like streamline your access to work on the same projects together. This might be a little bit more interesting. Like, I know there's a lot of questions about when tech companies are sort of the ones who decide who gets access to data. So this is a little bit about our application review process. And again, like I'll point out the key things that we think about, just so if you do submit an application, you'll understand, like how are you successful? Like, what do we actually care about? So first of all, I think it's important to note, we don't place any restrictions on the topic of the study. So it doesn't matter, a lot of folks have asked me like, oh, is this only for the DSA? Is this only for like systemic risk? Doesn't matter. We have really like fun topics that come in about like preferences in Italian food, like there's a really great like range of things that we see, and we're happy to support no matter what kind of issue areas it touches on. But then when we look at the application, there's sort of these 5 categories of things that we care about. So as I mentioned, we ask, we try to verify that the applicant is affiliated with the kind of organization they say they are, that they are who they say they are. This isn't like a big in-depth thing, but we just try and make sure that, we're not handing out credentials to folks who aren't part of the research community. We also look at research experience from the standpoint of trying to ensure that the researchers with access, particularly to the API with individual level data, have the expertise to responsibly handle that data. I mentioned, the eligibility criteria around institutions. So not-for-profit research institutions, universities in the US and Europe, and NGOs, think tanks, et cetera, in the EU for the virtual compute environment. Then when we look at the project itself, we're really just looking to understand like how do our tools enable that work? Can we clearly see a rationale for providing that data access? This can be really simple. It can be like, I looked at your code book, you have these variables, I want to, analyze them in this way. Very straightforward from our perspective, just to understand that there is a reason for us to give access. Probably the most important part of this is the data management plan. Again, it can be pretty straightforward. Most researchers who are putting together a project like write this up as part of that anyway. But we want to understand, is it password protected? Is it encrypted? Is it limited to the people involved in the project? Really simple stuff like that, just so that we can make sure we're doing our due diligence. And then the last thing is we do have a terms of service. This is really important from a privacy perspective. We have terms around, like building individual profiles. We have prohibitions around commercial use, things like that, that again, like help us like safeguard how our users' data is being used. So hopefully, if anyone in this room needs access to TikTok data and is eligible, as I explained, this will help set you up to get access pretty quickly. And we want your applications to be successful because I love nothing more than hitting the approve button and not having to go and ask questions and that kind of stuff. So here we go. The other thing I do want to point out is we have a lot of resources available about how to use the tools. We continue to build this out over time. So, we do want to have like better user support and things like that integrated as we go. But right now, we have a lot of content on our TikTok for Developers site, including a code book, getting started guidance, FAQs, things of that nature where you can really see what all is available and sample code and things like that. Also, we were able to release a research API wrapper for both R and Python. So that kind of gives you a jumping off point for running the queries that you're interested in. Now, hopefully this is like the more interesting part of the conversation today. I know I have to keep it a little bit succinct, but I'll try and give you a sense of like how we think this might be useful to the researchers and practitioners in this space. I get asked about this a lot in the sense that obviously there are limitations here. This is public data. It's not going to include some of the things that researchers looking into extremism might be interested in. And I in particular want to be really clear about the things that we prohibit through our community guidelines, terrorism, hate speech, things like that we consider to be violations that we take down. Once it's taken down, we don't consider it to be public data anymore. So you can't access that through our tools. However, I think there are a number of things that you can do with the tools that are still really valuable and can really provide a lot of foundational work in the space. And hopefully, this is an area that we discuss. And, if you have feedback for me to take back, I'm also happy to do that. But I'll just highlight, sort of 4 areas that I think are kind of worth calling out here. And yeah, happy to take questions later on when we turn to that. But one thing, I mentioned we take feedback into account as we go. Network analysis is an area that a lot of researchers, when we first launched the API, said, oh, we'd really like to have better support for doing that kind of work. And so we were able to add endpoints in the API for followers and following lists. So that really has expanded the ability to track networks and kind of see how people are connected on the platform. To talk about trend monitoring. So this is actually an interesting, if you're going to apply, a good thing to know. You can apply for access for up to 2 years at once. We recognize that a lot of longitudinal work takes longer than 2 years. So I do want to call out that we are happy to grant extensions. You just have to let us know. But, I think this is the kind of, our tools are here, they're here to stay, and we want researchers to be able to understand how, content strategies, language, tactics shift over time. And we think that's something that is, able to be supported through our public data sharing tools. You can think about content analysis. So there's extensive data to pull from here. There's the videos themselves, which you can't get the video file through the API, but you can get the URL. And if that's, if the user has enabled them to be downloadable, you can download them and analyze them. There's textual data from comments. You can look at counter speech, are certain messaging strategies effective? What is the, sentiment of the comments? What are the engagement metrics like? I think there's a lot of work to be done in that space that can be really interesting. And then, lastly, I just want to say, it can be a really rich source for researchers looking to develop their own resources, dictionaries of terms related to certain ideologies, thinking about ways to enhance, detection of, whatever content is of interest, over time. So these are the things that I think, can become really powerful with these types of tools. So happy to, talk more about it, get your feedback and take it back to the team, but wanted to give you an overview of where we stand now and think about data sharing moving forward. So thank you.
So thank you so much, Catherine. And you mentioned that content that's taken down isn't available using this tool, which Yannick, again, not to shout out Yannick too many times in my presentation, but he mentioned how terrorist produced content can be such a really valuable source of data, which is why I'm very excited to introduce the next presentation. Before I do, I have a few questions for the people in the audience. Show of hands, who here has read or has access to a single terrorist manifesto or piece of content? Cool, a lot of you. How about 10 pieces? 50? Okay, Erin, yeah, Erin's got a lot. Don't look at her computer. And then anyone have access to about, I don't know, 2,200-ish? That's you, Julien. Yeah, good. Yeah, we tried to practice that, but obviously didn't work. Yeah, no, we'll talk about it in the meeting next week. Yeah, no, we're good. Perfect. So that's crazy. We didn't plan that at all. So I will turn to Julien now. Julien is the research director of the Global Network on Extremism and Technology at ICSR, which I believe has a new name. Let me just look what it is. The Center for Statecraft and National Security, and a PhD candidate in the Department of War Studies at King's College London, where his research focuses on the social and functional roles of conspiracy theories in violent extremist groups. And Julien will be talking about the READ database today.
Thank you, Michael. Oh, so here, does it work? Yeah. Thank you, Michael. I'm very happy to be on this panel. We spend so much time looking at how extremists use technology. We tend to forget, or it's easy to lose sight, at least, of how technology could help us, new tools, new platform, how they can be beneficial to our work. I'm also happy to share this panel with Catherine and Wassef. They're both here to present great tools that will be, I'm sure, very useful to the community. Now, one way to make a positive use of tech is the creation of repositories of primary sources, documents that can be sometimes very difficult to obtain, and put them at the disposal of researchers and practitioners to help them in their work. At ICSR, we created READ, the repository of extremist-aligned documents. It's our database of far and extreme right documents. You can access the database using this little QR code at the bottom right of my first slide, if you'd like to take a look during the presentation. So here I will present READ, what it is, its purpose, what you could expect to find there, and also how to access the platform. I will also talk about two ways in which tech innovation helped us along the way. The first is the use of AI and LLM technology to efficiently classify documents. And the second is what we're doing right now. It's the creation of a new platform using DSpace, a state-of-the-art repository software. So let's start with the beginning. What is READ? READ is a free of charge database. It's a free service of far and extreme right documents. By extreme right, I mean the far right of the far right that is formed principally, like mainly, of ethnic and racial nationalists that view violence as a legitimate way to achieve their goals and objectives. It was designed for professionals working in the field, focusing on radicalization, violent extremism, and terrorism. The database includes so far more than 2,200 documents, and we always keep an eye out in far-right online communities to capture new documents, new manifestos as they emerge. To date, we have around 900 subscribers spanning across the field, researchers, scholars, law enforcement, trust and safety experts, PVE, CVE practitioners, and others. And we're happy to see that the database is useful for such a wide range of professionals. In terms of purpose, READ is part of ICSR's effort to democratize access to violent extremist primary sources in the community of professionals. And we did that by curating an archive of verified far-right documents to help them in their work, so they would not have to spend time looking for these documents. And the second objective is to help preserving the mental health of researchers and practitioners working in the field. Obviously, we all know here that far-right online communities are particularly toxic. They're full of extreme violence, gruesome content, and that can affect the psychological well-being of whoever spends time there. That's not to say that the documents available on the platform are not toxic, but at least you can access them directly without having to spend time in this phase. In terms of methodology, READ's methodology is encoded in digital ethnography. All the sources that are available on the platform come from far-right social media, forums, chan sites, website, etc. And every time we look, we capture a new document, it's analyzed against our inclusion criteria. We currently have 4 categories of documents on READ. The first are texts from far and extreme right authors and publishers. It includes a wide range of different authors, Guillaume Fay, Julius Evola, Savitri Devi, or branding content from groups and movements such as Atomwaffen Division, Führerkrieg Division, Terrorgram, and others. We also have manifestos, documents posted by attackers before the attacks. They often give us indication of the terrorist motivation, ideological background, sometimes biographical elements. We also have Nazi material from Hitler's Mein Kampf to Goebbels' speeches, essay, SS propaganda, all things Nazi. And finally, training or instructional material, such as tactical guidance on how to choose target, how to prepare for an attack, bomb making tutorials, guidance on how to 3D print firearms. This last category is restricted to law enforcement staff and personnel only due to the nature of the documents. So to give you a glimpse about of what the platform looks like, this is the homepage. You need to register for an account to be created. Once you register, your information is passed on to us. We decide whether to approve or reject your request. I will explain in a minute how we decide that. Once approved, you can access our search engine. You can search for documents using key terms, date, type of documents, publisher. You have a bunch of metadata you can choose from to find what you're looking for. Once you decide, this is what the search result looks like. This is the search result for manifesto. You have a listing of the different documents. And once you choose the item you're interested in, this is what the item looks like with the main metadata, the main characteristic of any document. This is Brenton Tarrant, the Christchurch terrorist who published who posted his manifesto, The Great Replacement, before his attack in 2019, before he went on and attacked 2 mosques in Christchurch, New Zealand. You can decide whether to download the file and keep it on your computer, or if you don't want to have that sort of documents on your computer, you can view the file directly through your navigator. So now I would like to say a few words about the ways in which tech innovation helped us along the way. And the first is how we use AI, LLM technology to help us with the classification of documents. So READ originally was the fruit of the work of many researchers who went out, collected data from social media, and put all the data together into a huge file that was 239 gigabytes, which represents 30,129 files, randomly distributed across 2,693 folders and subfolders. How exciting is that? Basically, it was a mess. There were many duplicates, out of scope documents, broken or corrupted files. It appeared to us very quickly that we won't be able to classify these documents manually. So we decided to work with two very talented data engineers, Theo Barry and Arnaud de Saint-Méloire. I really want to give their name here because they helped us so much. And together we developed an AI-assisted document classification system that automatically extracted relevant information from documents, identified duplicates, and summarized documents. So to tell you a little bit, to expand a little bit on what we did, we used a GPU cluster, a fully private and fully encrypted server, so no data would be sent out to any service provider. Of course, due to the nature of documents, we wanted to keep that information in-house and not to send it to anyone, so that was a private, fully encrypted server. Then Theo and Arnaud applied a hashing function to detect duplicates across the database. What does that mean? Basically, they assign a digital footprint, a series of numbers of documents, works exactly on the same principle of DFCT, a hash sharing database. DFCT assign digital footprints on pieces of anti-extremist content to detect them across different platforms. We did that on one single dataset. Then the programmed Python services, they automatically extracted the metadata, authors, title, text, all relevant information was extracted automatically and then transferred to an LLM, a local LLM model. They used Google Open Model Gemma 29B to basically summarize all the documents. And finally, we reviewed everything that was gathered with a human review. It was transferred to our team to ensure reliability and accuracy of how the AI worked. We checked against every original document to make sure that nothing goes amiss. So this is what it looked like. It was months, it was weeks of discussion to get that done, uploading the PDF files, Python services extracting the information automatically, the LLM summarizing the document, transferred to a database which was reviewed manually by our team. I think we did at least two manual review, but even more. And finally had a final output, final Excel that was a single unified Excel of documents that were within read scope. So now another way in which READ benefited from tech innovation is advances in the field of repository technology. We're currently in the process of building a new, more professional platform using the repository software DSpace, which we hope will help us cross a threshold in terms of content management and long-term preservation of files. So DSpace, what is DSpace? It's an open source repository software that was developed by developers from MIT and HP Lab. DSpace focus is on long-term preservation of digital file. We may think that digital file will last forever on our hardware, but that's not the case. They can become corrupted or broken. Technology evolves as well. New formats keep emerging. And DSpace constantly updates files to current formats to ensure that they remain accessible over time. And that fits our ambition to create a resource that will be accessible and useful for the community over the years to come. In terms of functionalities, DSpace allows the classification of documents into communities and collections. It's a more differentiated classification system that divides documents into themes and sub-themes. There's also a built-in navigator that allows basically users to search for documents across communities and collection. Users will be able also to navigate through READ's content easily. They won't have to know what they're looking for, and they'll be able to know what's on the platform at any given point in time. DSpace search engine also includes optical character recognition function That means that this space can identify words and full quotes within our document, which could be very useful for thematic search. And finally, it includes a secure submission system that could be useful for potential contributors. If anyone is interested to contribute documents to the database, we will be able to grant them access remotely. We will then be able to review the documents and upload them or publish them if we think that they fit our inclusion criteria. So we hope to be able to launch the platform soon. When that will happen, we will do an announcement and organize a webinar to present the platform in more detail. We also have a project coming up with GiveCity as well, where we will annotate some of the content available on the platform and provide more contextual information. So feel free to reach out or to come talk to me afterwards if you want to hear more about this project. And finally, how to access READ. So access to READ is, of course, restricted to students and professionals to limit the spread of that kind of document to the community of professionals. Prospective users need to fill out a registration form on our website. They also need to provide a valid institutional email address. Students may also provide a letter of support from their supervisors. For students, we also reset their account after a year and send them an email to re-verify the status to make sure that they're still eligible to access the platform. We usually try to respond within 24 hours. We approve requests manually, and once an account is approved, an activation link is sent to the user. That's a way for us, so they can activate their account, and that's a way for us to make sure that the institutional email they provided is valid and active. So this is READ, part of ICSR's effort to democratize access to violent extremist primary resources in the community, and hopefully to contribute to organize that effort as well. Feel free to talk to friends and colleagues and students about READ. We're always happy to hear about new subscribers. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Julien. It's really exciting to hear how READ has shaped up, and a big congrats to you, Alex, and Harrison as well, who's supporting on that. We talk a lot about CVE exploitation of AI, and we did hear a little bit this morning about how AI can be used to support our efforts. So it's really good, Julien, for you to give us a case study on that. And that actually leads very well into our final presentation for the panel from Wassef. Wassef teaches strategic communication at the Université Gustave Eiffel. I probably butchered that pronunciation, but Australian accents don't really do French very well, and works as a project manager at the Centre for Action and Prevention Against Individual Radicalisation in Bordeaux, France. He is both an analyst of online extremist dynamics and the founder of several prevention initiatives operating both online and on the ground. Thanks so much.
Good afternoon, everyone. Firstly, thank you to the GNET and all the partners to give me this opportunity to share with you the story behind a new AI tool created by CAPRI, the Center of Prevention Against Radicalisation, based in Bordeaux, south of France. And the story of this tool is very aligned with the story of this NGO. Let me give me some words about this organization. A French NGO, a very local, created just after the several terrorist attacks. You know, all the events around Charlie Hebdo, Bataclan, and Stade de France. Our goal during this time was to bring together experts and professionals from different backgrounds, psychologists, sociologists, lawyers, but also religious leaders, to assist families and professionals and give, firstly, training, mostly for professionals, and personal assistance to the family in front of vulnerable people and people sometimes in process of radicalization. And year after years, we were able to understand, firstly, the different profile of radicalized and to understand also the evolution of the different extremist ideologies. And after all this collection of data, because all this interaction, training, or personal assistance allow us to create a concrete database. And just after the pandemic of COVID, we had an idea what we can do after 7 or 8 years of work, what we can do with this database. And our idea was to offer a new service to our public to firstly reduce the workflow of our experts, because we want to give time to our experts to dedicate more time to the most complicated case, because they need a deeper connection with the target, and to offer an answer to the new trend during this context of COVID. The two main trends was after this period, firstly, the evolution of our requests, because during this time, before this time, the request was focused on Islamism, but right now we have a balance. We are in a very atomized context between Islamism, far right, and a mix between conspiracy theories, anarchism, and a lot of subtopic. And we want to offer a new way to communicate with our target without a personal assistant, because we receive a lot of call, because we have an helpline, a contact email, and people want to share their feeling in front of people around them, but we don't have the capacity to dedicate the same amount of time for each request. And after a lot of work of development with our team and partners, we launched 1 year ago a new platform on our website, radicalisation.fr. Firstly, this is a chatbot fully confidential, without any registration, of course, free. Without judgment, of course, we can't create a duplication of the human empathy, but we try with all the instruction that we can put on this tool to reach a certain degree of empathy. Each question from our public is taken charge with a deep study of the context. And of course, the different public, mainly professionals and families, can evaluate a potential case of radicalization with the database that we have. We will go deeper in the details of the database in a few seconds. And we offer also a lot of resources from scientists, experts, from psychologists, inside and outside the Capri. And with all this data, we train a chatbot with a receipt based on 3 ingredients. The first one and the most important is the data. We have hundreds of anonymized real-life cases to train this data based on a regular update of our database. And of course, a robust AI foundation based on Claude, the model of Anthropic. Of course, the AI in this tool doesn't give any information. They connect the information that the Capri wants to promote. The technology allows us to connect the different sources and to adapt the answer for each request. We don't have any trust in, and I'm sure in front of me, I am a lot of users of ChatGPT, and sometimes you know all the drift of a chatbot. And for this model, we really want to focus on our own data and to use the AI only to connect and to create a logic model in front of our users. Just a few words, and I don't want to repeat, but if we go deeper in our database, you can see 4 pillars of our work. Of course, the real life cases built from our experiences, our team of psychologists and educators taking charge since 10 years, more than 200 people, and many of them are clearly relevant to the majority of the requests that we had right now. Official documentation from French government, but also from other countries. As I said before, a regular update to be always connected to the trends and to be very specific for each kind of ideology, and training resources developed by our partners. And we can't work on data without putting pressure on our shoulder, without taking in consideration the ethical integrity, of course. No personal data collection. Of course, if someone give us in the chatbot any name or email or personal phone, we remove the information unless if we need this information for security reason. If the individual can create a risk for him or for the others. And the last point of this precaution is the GDPR compliance of our tool. We respect, of course, this law. Just to summarize the impact on our targets, more than 200 people have interacted with the tool last year. This is very interesting because we were able to see the different background of the users, different extremist ideology, and this is the same conclusion that we had before the creation of the tool. And this is the same for the professionals. And right now we train more than 1,000 structures to guide our partners and to reach more and more people in France to work with this tool. And to finish, a few words to be very clear on what it is this tool and what is not. Firstly, this is not, this is a preventive and supportive pedagogical resource. We give documentation adapted to each context. This is the first step, or maybe we can say this is a catalyst to reach other organizations, authorities, other NGO for a specific needs. And this tool, it's not a diagnostic tool. We want to put on the table the indicators to help families to understand the situation. We are not a replacement for psychologists, of course. And the last point, we are not a surveillance mechanism. And to conclude this presentation, I just want to share with you our perspective. We are currently in collaboration with different NGOs in France to promote this tool. We want next year to adapt this tool to other partners around the world and to collaborate with researchers, firstly to improve the tool, but also to explore a new use case for a mid- and long-term integration. Thank you very much. And of course, I think the best way to understand what is this tool is to go to radicalisation.fr and to try this tool. This is clearly designed for a French context, but you can interact with our chatbot in English and put you in the place of a French guy. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Wassef. We talk a lot about having humans in the loop when we are building AI tools. So it was really great to see the slide about how it's not a replacement for kind of any in-person type interaction. With that, we are going to turn it out to you guys. If you have any questions, I'll let you take some time to think because we do have a couple coming in from online. First, Catherine, for you, in the context of the virtual compute environment, if TikTok has any experience in allowing privacy enhancing technologies to be able to study TikTok algorithms. I'll let you chew on that one for a second. And then Julien, there's one for you as well. Is AI being used to find new documents for DSpace, or will it rely on user submissions? You guys want to get
Sure.
started?
Yeah, no, I can kick off. So I think it's probably pretty obvious, but one of the requests that we get frequently for TikTok is like, how can I study your algorithm and your recommender system and you know, like better have better visibility into like how, you know, how you recommend content. This is not something that is built into our current tools. It's obviously a little bit of like a different type of data. It is something that we, you know, think about in terms of algorithmic transparency and ways that we can, you know, enhance what's available in terms of our data sharing portfolio over time. I will say, you know, it is a bit of a tough one. Like, I think it's something that, you know, we have to be very careful in the way that we do it. So I will say, like, I don't, you know, in terms of what I presented today, in terms of the API and the VC, I don't see a way to integrate that data into the existing tools. But, you know, we've certainly seen projects that use them, that use sort of like proxy measures of engagement and things like that to look at, you know, like what is popular and what is, you know, likely on the For You feed and that kind of thing. Going forward, though, you know, I think this is something where we are putting thought into the best ways to allow that sort of visibility into our systems. I think it'll be a different type of tool than the virtual compute environment, though, to put it really briefly. Hopefully that's a helpful start, and, you know, happy to chat further with anyone who wants to give me ideas of what they'd like to see, and I can take all that feedback back to my core product friends.
So the answer regarding whether we use AI to find new content is no. We just use AI to assist us in the classification of document in a more complex system that including human reviews and multiple ones. We rely mostly on digital ethnography. We spend time online, then we capture the documents to analyze them in depth with the team at ICSR, and then we decide whether or not they fit our inclusion criteria. We're always happy to hear about our potential contributors, whether if we had people coming to us saying, oh, I have this manifesto you don't have, I checked the database. We're always happy we're always happy to hear about potential contributors, but of course, even if people reach out to us, we need to make sure that the documents they offer fit our standards and criteria.
And then I just see another question on there for you, Julien. If you don't mind, is the RAID resource restricted to a certain kind of professional?
So usually we're talking about professionals in the field, people working on radicalization, violent extremism, terrorism, law enforcement, trust and safety, researchers, PVE, CVE practitioners. Of course, people can always register, and then case by case we analyze. Usually people who want to go to RAID are people who have a professional interest in being there. But we can always have surprises, and then we discuss them. And we always go on the more cautious side of things. If we're not sure, we just don't approve requests.
Awesome. Anyone in person have the question? Oh, we got a couple. Is there a microphone on your side? I can't. We can start with Erin. She's my boss, I have to say that.
We can go back there then. You don't have to say it. You can keep your job, you're fine. My question's to Wassef, actually, and there's a couple people in the room. I know Jonathan's in the room with Violence Prevention Network. I know ISD folk have worked on deterring people away from radicalization, and it's so important that there's trust, that somebody would reach out. And you talked about being anonymous, and in all these cases, it's always good to ask, like, have you had any government pressure or pressure from law enforcement of at what point you might turn over information, or if you think you're witnessing credible threat, or has there been pressure from the government to know more about who might be on the spectrum of radicalization? This is always a very delicate dance between privacy and safety, and one that every organization is having to face in a different way.
Yes, I think this is one of the most regular questions that we had since the creation of Capri. But we are lucky because our collaboration with the French government was very clear at the beginning. We collaborate and we share information when we can see a direct risk for the physical integrity, and when also we can see a clear process of radicalization that in a context where Capri can't work more on this case, because in a certain stage of radicalization, the authority take the lead. But as like I said at the end of my presentation, we are not a surveillance mechanism. We are here to help people. And to be honest, since 3 years, our government don't let the most urgent case to the NGOs. A lot of work of internalization inside the French government are occurred, and right now we are more in a first work of prevention.
Thank you. We can go over to this side now. Oh, back behind you. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you so much. I'm Emila Gandhi. I have two questions, one for Dr. Julien and also for Catherine. I'll start the one for Catherine. How do you use the research that's been done? Because I'm understanding you're giving access to researchers, to academics, and practitioners. Is it two-way? Do you then use the research that you have, the insights that you receive to improve your products or policies? Just want to understand if it's just, there's this data and it's done, or you're also benefiting from that. So that's for you. And for Dr. Julien, how do you, thank you so much for the, sharing about READ. How do you ensure that, the platform does not fall into the wrong hands? How do you, what's your approach in ensuring, that, in ensuring, the security, the identity of the people? I know you mentioned, people using their professional, email address. Is that it, or is there other approaches as well that you're ensuring that,
Sure. Yeah. So I can start. And I really love your question, because I think it points out the fact that it's a mutual opportunity for both the companies and the researchers. Certainly for TikTok, we always review any of the publications that we see, using our data, both from the perspective of, can we learn anything either for, our trust and safety team, which I'm, of course, like closest with, or for other teams that look at different features of the product and that kind of thing. But we also review them because currently the tools are still quite young in terms of just being a couple years old, and given the timeline of academic publication, which I'm sure folks in this room have experienced, it can take a while for these publications to come out. So we're starting to see more and more now, but we haven't seen just like an inundation of publications from the research API to date. And as we start to see, what people have learned from our tools, we often in parallel to that see the difficulties that they had using them. And that's really important information for us on, the team that designs and manages the tools to take that feedback and, try to address any, issues that users are having with the research API and the VCE. So yes, the short answer is yes, it's very valuable for us. And we always try to connect in with the right team who can learn from the insights that the researchers share.
And thank you for the question. Yeah. In terms of how do we make sure that we doesn't go into the wrong hands? So all the mechanism, obviously we have limitation on how much we can be sure that the people who register are actually the people who register. Our approach is to be very cautious, trying to look, first of all, institutional email address, activation link, make sure that the people who register have an online footprint wherever possible. And ensure that like they cannot activate their account if they don't use their professional email address. Now, funnily enough, we don't have too many people who are actually trying to get into read. It looks like violent extremists are more attracted to the social aspects of spending time online in these communities and capturing this document. We had very little cases where we had people where we weren't sure wanting to register and we rejected them. But more generally, we had many more people who registered on the 900 something subscribers that we have. So the field is not too big. We know most people. Students are backed up by their supervisors. They're also usually their account are canceled after a year. We also don't promote the platform too much, only on LinkedIn to be sure that like we address our crowd of professionals. But of course, it's just about being cautious case by case, making sure that you know the people who are there, that they use a professional email address, that their address is valid. And that's how we've been doing it so far. We can't access their personal documentation or that sort of thing. It's a bit legally could be a little complicated.
Awesome. Thanks, Julien. I'm going to pass over to this side, the girl in the red right there. And then if you don't mind passing across to Jonathan, I believe you had a question. Cool.
I was for Wassef, particularly about the chatbot and how the quality is short responses. Obviously, you have went through speech PPR and the rest of it, but I assume you have a quality assurance process in place, so that you know that the chatbot is giving out information support that is reliable. So I'm interested in how you do that, if the review responses, and also if you continue to train it with new data. If you can say a bit more about that. And the third thing is, you mentioned the chatbot can work with different languages. Is that accounted for in the training data that you put in? Because obviously that might impact responses and communication around kind of linguistics.
And then Jonathan, is your question also for?
It's also for Wassef.
Perfect. Go for it.
That's okay. I've actually got so Jonathan Russell at Violence Prevention Network in Germany. I've got the opposite question to the one that Aaron asked, if that's okay, which is also about data privacy. You said up front that it was confidential and anonymous. Did you do any user testing about the level of personal data that individuals might share while engaging, and how they might give informed consent to share some of that? Given the very small numbers, it seemed that maybe some of that personal data might be interesting if we can use it safely.
I will start with your last question, because yes, we can train our tool with different documents with different languages, and we train. It depends of the new trend, but I think sometimes weekly, sometimes monthly. It depends, but at least monthly we had internal data and new publication from our partners and other scientists. And I go back to your first question about the review of the quality. We have two ways to evaluate. We evaluate each request because we are lucky we don't have thousands and thousands of requests. And we have also a way to evaluate directly by the users. After each answer, you can evaluate the answer. Yes. And thank you very much for your question. I think the goal when we created the tool was to catch people who are not in a process of or a philosophy to collaborate or contact an NGO. And the satisfaction behind this tool is that right now we have people who never imagined to contact a structure like the Capri, but they are always a little bit afraid about the data that they share. And I think the most important data that they want to share is sometimes the city where they live, but we don't have any information. I think this is also why the Capri was created, because the trust with an NGO, especially at a local level, and collaboration with a national big NGO or with the service of the government. Some people want at the first step to contact a structure like us by the helpline, but also by the chatbots. They share only the situation, the worries, and after we try to redirect, sometimes in front of the authorities. But with us, if we don't have any personal interaction in real life with our experts, people don't share the information.
Perfect. We have a couple questions in the middle down the front. I don't know if you want to grab. Thank you.
Hello. Is actually on, but hi. This is I'm Gabriella from Ofcom. This is for Julien. This was all really interesting. Thank you. Curious, what's next for Read? Are you going to expand ideologies? Does it include any kind of metadata? So where the manifesto was originally downloaded from, maybe there's information about how many times it's been shared and different types of platforms. And then also, has there been any research on Read overall? I'm just thinking you've got all of these documents together. There's obviously an opportunity to maybe build some kind of model or kind of relatedness diagram to see actually which manifestos are potentially borrowing from others and which inspire newer manifestos.
So they're both very interesting questions. First, what's next for Read? Right now, we're building this new DSpace platform. Still a lot of discussion. We've gone a long way with Harrison, who is now our project manager. We've been working together on the classification of documents. Took a long time. Now we're building the new platform. These are all ongoing discussions about like how, what kind of data. We have this fantastic project with the FCT coming up, annotating documents. We're currently discussing and providing contextual information. In the first phase, we'll probably focus on the specific data set. We're discussing on the format and what kind of information we'll add. And regarding the research, I'm sure that researchers use Read, but we have not institutionalized like some sort of like process to actually quote Read as such. People just go and take the data they need and probably quote the data itself. But yeah, that's definitely something we can figure out in the future.
Yeah, that being said, if anyone is interested in doing that kind of research, come talk to Julien or myself as well, and we're happy to talk about it. And then actually, we have another question back in the middle with the, yep. Thank you.
Hello, and thank you very much. My name is Susan, I'm from CST. My question is also for Julien, along the same sort of line, in terms of how fast are you able to collect the data and collect the documents that you hold within the space? So, like with the manifesto drops, obviously there's sometimes a limited time frame in which they are available online, and sometimes it gets taken down by authorities. So is it more of a retroactive process in terms of finding those documents at a time, or was things in the moment where the manifesto drops, you are able to collect it for the database?
So both Harrison and I monitor these fairs every day on Telegram, on a variety of different social media. we're also following the news. We rely on our extensive network of collaborators, also through GNET. Our GNET fellow Ricardo, who's sitting somewhere, Ricardo sent us, for example, the manifesto from the Antioch shooter that we could not get a hold of. You can't really detect automatically that sort of documents as they emerge. You need to spend time there, be sure that these are the documents you're looking for. After the first phase of data collection from years ago, that was a previous team that I joined later on. Now we are more into picking up new manifestos, new documents every time there's an attack, every time there's a publication from whatever group. But yeah, it's a slow pace. It's about collecting quality rather than quantity at this stage. We already have 2,200 documents and more, and we hope to be building this slowly over the years to come. So that's the idea.
Thank you. We have time for maybe one more if anyone has a burning question. Otherwise, we are all good to go to a coffee break. I don't see any hands. So if everyone can come back here by 3:15, we'll have our final panel. Thank you so much.